At my wedding, my mom smiled and said, "We're passing the car his parents gave you over to your sister." My sister laughed and added, "Relax, it's just a car." My groom just looked at her and said, "The rehearsal dinner had gone perfectly. Everything was set for tomorrow." I should have been floating on air, but something in my mother's expression kept nagging at me as I drove back to the hotel that night. She pulled my sister Bethany aside 3 times during dinner, whispering urgently while shooting glances in my direction. "I'm Melissa Mitchell, about to become Melissa Hartley in less than 24 hours. I'm 27 years old, and tomorrow was supposed to be the happiest day of my life." My fiancé Daniel comes from old money, the kind that doesn't flash itself around, but quietly owns half the commercial real estate in our city. His parents had given us a stunning wedding gift 3 months ago, a fully loaded Mercedes GLE 450 SUV with my name on the title. It was sitting in their garage since Daniel and I were still living in separate apartments until after the wedding. My family is different. We're not poor, but we've always scraped by. Mom worked as an office manager, making about $50,000 a year. Dad passed away from cancer when I was 19. And Bethany dropped out of college twice before finally giving up entirely. She's 29 now, 2 years older than me, and still lives at home run-free while working part-time at a boutique. Growing up, Bethany was always the favorite. She got the bigger bedroom, the later curfew, the expensive prom dress, while I wore something from Target. Mom justified it by saying Bethany needed more support because she struggled with her confidence. Translation: I was independent and got good grades, so I didn't require the same attention. The pattern continued into adulthood. When I got into law school, Mom threw a small dinner. When Bethany completed a 6-week online course in social media marketing, Mom hosted a party with catering from her modest savings. The wedding morning arrived with perfect weather. My bridesmaids helped me into my dress, a custom beer wang that Daniel had surprised me with. His family had insisted on paying for the wedding, much to my mother's visible irritation. She'd wanted control of the planning, but Daniel's mother, Catherine, politely steamrolled every attempt, keeping things classy and elegant, rather than the gaudy spectacle Mom had envisioned. I was touching up my lipstick when Mom walked into the bridal suite. She was wearing a dress that was far too close to white for mother-of-the-bride etiquette, but I'd already fought that battle and lost. "Sweetheart, you look beautiful," she said, though her smile seemed strained. "I wanted to talk to you about something before the ceremony." My stomach dropped. Nothing good ever came from those words. "Can it wait until after?" I asked, securing my veil. "It really can't. It's about the Mercedes." My hands froze. "What about it?" She sat down on the velvet sofa, smoothing her dress. "Well, Beth's car finally died last week. The transmission went, and it would cost more to fix than the car is worth. She needs reliable transportation for job interviews." "Okay," I said slowly. "What does that have to do with my wedding gift?" Mom's laugh was light, practiced. "Oh, honey, you're being dramatic. Daniel's family has plenty of money. They can get you another car anytime, but Bethany really needs one now, and that Mercedes is just sitting there unused." The audacity stole my breath. "Mom, that car was a wedding gift to me and Daniel from his parents with my name on the title." "Exactly. Your name, not Daniel's, which means you can do whatever you want with it. And the loving, generous thing would be to help your sister." She stood up, adjusting her hair in the mirror. "We're passing the car over to Bethany. I already discussed it with her, and she's thrilled. She's even planning to drive it to job interviews next week. You discussed giving away my car without talking to me first." "Melissa, don't be selfish. You're marrying into wealth. You'll have everything you could ever want. Your sister is struggling. This is what family does." She moved toward the door. "Besides, it's already decided. Bethany is picking it up from the Hartley estate tomorrow." Catherine was surprisingly understanding when I called her yesterday. My vision went red. "You called Daniel's mother and told her you're giving away the car she gave me." I explained the family situation. She said she'd talk to Daniel about it. Mom checked her watch. "We should get you lined up. The ceremony starts in 30 minutes. She left before I could respond. I stood there, my beautiful dress suddenly feeling like a costume, my perfect day crumbling. The door opened again, and Bethany walked in wearing a bridesmaid dress that she'd complained was too plain for her taste. "Hey, bride," she grinned, clearly unaware of what just happened. "I'm so excited about the Mercedes. Mom said I could have it since you're going to be loaded now anyway." "Bethany, that's not—" "Oh, come on, Melissa, don't be like this." She rolled her eyes. It's just a car. You'll get a dozen more. I actually need it. Something inside me snapped, but years of being the responsible one kept my voice level. Bethany, that car was a gift from Daniel's parents. To me. For our wedding. She shrugged, examining her manicure. Yeah, but like you don't even need it. Daniel probably makes more in a month than I'll see in a year. Why are you being so stingy? Stingy? It's my property. Relax. It's just a car. She said it so casually, as if she were borrowing a sweater. Besides, Mom already arranged everything. I'm picking it up tomorrow at 10 o'clock. My maid of honor, Jessica, had walked in during this exchange. Her expression went from confused to furious in seconds. I'm sorry, what? Bethany turned to her. Melissa's being dramatic about me getting the Mercedes that Daniel's parents gave her, like she won't have 50 more cars in her lifetime. Jessica looked at me. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. My mom just told me what happened. Don't worry. Stay calm. I'm handling it. The ceremony began at 4 o'clock in the garden of the Hartley estate. 200 guests filled white chairs, arranged in perfect rows. Daniel stood at the altar, looking like he'd stepped out of a magazine, his best man and groomsmen flanking him. I walked down the aisle on my uncle's arm, since Dad wasn't here to do it, and I tried to focus on Daniel's face instead of my mother's satisfied smile in the front row. We exchanged vows. Daniel's voice was steady and sure when he promised to love and cherish me. When it was my turn, I had to blink back angry tears that had nothing to do with joy. The officiant pronounced us husband and wife. Daniel kissed me, and everyone applauded. The reception was held in a massive tent decorated with thousands of white roses and crystal chandeliers. Dinner was served, speeches were made, and I went through the motions while my mind raced. Daniel kept squeezing my hand under the table, but he seemed oddly calm given what had happened. After the first dance, we made our rounds greeting guests. Mom cornered me near the cake table, Bethany trailing behind her. Melissa, darling, you look absolutely radiant, Mom said, kissing my cheek. I'm so proud of you. Are we really doing this right now? I kept my voice low. Doing what? I'm complimenting my daughter on her wedding day. She glanced around at the opulent decorations, the designer dresses, the expensive champagne flowing freely. You certainly landed well. The Hartleys really know how to throw an event. Bethany giggled, slightly tipsy from the open bar. Seriously, Melissa, this must have cost like $500,000, and you were worried about one little car. Several nearby guests turned to look. Daniel materialized at my side, his hand finding the small of my back. Mrs. Mitchell, Bethany, he said pleasantly, enjoying the reception? His voice was calm, but I knew that edge in it. Oh, it's lovely, Daniel, Mom gushed. Your family has been so generous, which is actually what I wanted to mention to Melissa earlier about the Mercedes, Daniel interrupted smoothly. Yes, my mother told me about your phone call. Mom's smile faltered slightly. Oh, well, I hope she explained the situation with Bethy's car. It really is urgent that she has reliable transportation. She did explain, Daniel said. She explained that you called, asking us to sign over Melissa's wedding gift to Bethany because it would be the family-oriented thing to do. Bethany jumped in, apparently emboldened by champagne. It's not like Melissa needs it. You guys are rich. You could buy 10 Mercedes and not even notice. The nearby conversations had stopped entirely now. People were openly staring. Daniel's parents had moved closer, along with his sister Emily and her husband. I could see Daniel's jaw tighten, the only physical tell that he was angry. He'd spent months planning this wedding with me, making sure every detail was perfect. His parents had written checks without blinking, never once making me feel like I didn't deserve the fairy tale day. And here was my mother at the reception they'd paid for, trying to redistribute their gifts like she was some kind of Robin Hood. Actually, Bethany, Daniel said, his tone conversational, let me ask you something. When was the last time you paid for your own phone bill? Bethany blinked, caught off guard. What does that have to do with... Just answer the question. Mom pays it. It's a family plan, right? And your car insurance before your car died? Also on Mom's plan, Bethany muttered, her confidence wavering. Rent? I live at home. Credit card bills? Bethany's face flushed. Mom helps me sometimes when I'm short. So, let me get this straight, Daniel continued, his voice still pleasant but sharp enough to cut glass. You're 26 years old. You work part-time, approximately 15 hours a week based on what you told me at the rehearsal dinner. Your mother pays for your housing, phone, insurance, and regularly covers your credit card debt. And you think Melissa, who put herself through college, working 2 jobs, who graduated law school with honors while waitressing on weekends, who has never asked her mother for a dime since she turned 18, you think she's the selfish one? The silence was deafening. I could hear someone's champagne glass clink against their plate from 3 tables away. Mom's face had gone from flushed to pale. Daniel, you're making this into something it's not. No, Mrs. Mitchell, Daniel replied coolly. I'm making it exactly what it is. Let me tell you what Melissa hasn't told you because she's too kind to throw it in your face. Daniel's hand was still on my back, steady and supportive. When Melissa was applying to law schools, she got accepted to Harvard. Full ride. Do you know why she turned it down? I felt my breath catch. I'd never told Daniel this directly, but he must have pieced it together from old conversations. She turned it down because you called her crying, saying you couldn't handle Bethy's depression if Melissa moved to Boston. You said Bethany needed her big sister close by, so Melissa went to the state school instead, commuting from an apartment she could barely afford rather than living on campus, so she could come home on weekends to support Bethany. Mom's mouth opened, but no sound came out. And you know what Bethany was doing during those weekends Melissa was sacrificing her dream school for? Daniel looked at my sister. Dating that guy Marcus, going to parties, living her life. She wasn't depressed. She was fine. But you knew if you played the mental health card, Melissa would fold, because that's what Melissa does. She puts everyone else first. How dare you? Mom finally found her voice. You have no idea what our family has been through. I know exactly what your family has been through, Daniel said, his voice rising slightly. I've watched you guilt Melissa into missing our 6-month anniversary dinner because Bethany had a bad Tinder date. I've watched you expect Melissa to cover Bethy's portion of your birthday dinner bill because she's struggling right now. I've watched you ask Melissa to postpone our engagement photos by a week because it was too close to Bethy's birthday and you didn't want her to feel overshadowed. Each example hit like a physical blow. These were private moments, small concessions I'd made to keep the peace. Hearing them listed out loud made the pattern impossible to ignore. That's just family, Mom said weakly. Family makes sacrifices. No, Mrs. Mitchell, Daniel said firmly. Melissa makes sacrifices. Bethany makes demands. There's a difference. He looked around at the watching crowd. I apologize to our guests for this scene, but I think it's important that everyone understand what's happening here. This isn't about a car. This is about a lifetime of my wife being treated like her accomplishments. Her feelings and her property are all community resources to be distributed as her mother sees fit. Catherine Hartley stepped forward, her designer gown shimmering under the tent lights. She'd been quiet until now, but her expression was ice. Mrs. Mitchell, when you called me yesterday, you told me that Melissa had always been selfish with material things, and that this was an opportunity for her to learn to share with family. You asked me, as her new mother, to help teach her generosity. The crowd gasped. Several people looked at Mom with undisguised disgust. What you didn't know, Catherine continued, is that I had lunch with Melissa 2 weeks ago. She told me about a scholarship fund she's been quietly contributing to at her old high school, $1,000 a month, every month for the past year. It goes to students from low-income families who want to pursue law degrees. She specifically requested that it remain anonymous because she didn't want recognition. I felt tears burning my eyes again. I'd forgotten I'd even mentioned that to Catherine during one of our shopping trips. So, when you called me talking about teaching my daughter-in-law generosity, I have to tell you, Mrs. Mitchell, I found it quite rich, coming from someone who raised one daughter to give and another to take. Catherine's voice could have frozen hellfire. That Mercedes was meant to be a symbol of welcome to Melissa, a way of telling her that she's part of our family now. You attempted to manipulate me into betraying that welcome. That's not something I take lightly. Daniel's father, Robert, had been standing slightly behind his wife. He was a man of few words, but when he spoke, people listened. I built my company from nothing. I understand what it means to work hard and earn what you have. What I don't understand, he said evenly, is watching your child succeed and feeling entitled to the fruits of that success. Melissa didn't earn that car, Bethany burst out, tears streaming down her face now. You people just gave it to her because Daniel married her. She didn't do anything for it. You're absolutely right, Robert said calmly. She didn't earn it. It was a gift. Do you know why we give gifts, young lady? Because we care about someone and want them to have something nice, not because we expect that gift to be redistributed to their relatives. If we'd wanted to give you a car, we would have given you a car. But that's not fair, Bethany cried. Life isn't fair, Emily cut in, her patience clearly exhausted. I'm Daniel's sister, and I got a car when I got married too. You know what my sister-in-law didn't do? Show up at my wedding and demand I give it to her unemployed brother because that would be insane. This, she gestured sharply, is insane. The bridesmaids had formed a protective semicircle around me. Jessica was filming on her phone, which would later prove to be a blessing. My cousin Amanda, who I hadn't been close to in years, stepped forward, her voice clear. I need to say something. When I got engaged last year, you called my mom and said it was such a shame that I was getting married before Bethany because it would make Bethany feel bad about being single. You suggested I postpone my own wedding, for 6 months so Bethany wouldn't feel uncomfortable. Mom's eyes went wide. Amanda, that was a private conversation. No, it was a ridiculous request that showed exactly how you operate, and my mom, your own sister, told you no. She told you that you created a monster in Bethany by never letting her experience disappointment or consequences. She told you that you were destroying your relationship with Melissa by treating her like a support system instead of a daughter. Amanda's voice cracked. We've all watched this for years. We've all stayed quiet because we didn't want to cause family drama. But you know what? You caused this. You did this. Other relatives were nodding. My Aunt Rachel, Mom's other sister, looked like she wanted to speak but stayed silent. The weight of public judgment was crushing my mother. And somewhere deep inside, I felt a flicker of pity, but mostly I felt vindicated. Daniel's expression remained perfectly pleasant. You're right, Bethany. We could buy 10 Mercedes, but here's the thing. We shouldn't have to. Mom's face flushed. Daniel, I don't think you understand how difficult things have been for Bethany. I understand perfectly, he continued, his voice carrying across the silent tent. I understand that you spent 24 years putting Bethy's wants ahead of Melissa's needs. I understand that you called my mother and tried to manipulate her into giving away our property by making her feel guilty about our family's financial success. What I don't understand is why you thought that would work. Bethy's face went pale. It's just a car, she repeated weakly. Daniel turned to her fully. Just a car, right? So if it's just a car, it shouldn't matter that you don't get it. That's not what I meant. No, I know exactly what you meant. His voice was still wrapped in velvet. You meant that Melissa's gifts, Melissa's accomplishments, Melissa's happiness all matter less than yours because your mother taught you that you're entitled to everything your sister has. Mom, Bethany started, but Daniel raised a hand. Now you wait just a minute, Mom snapped. No, Mrs. Mitchell, Daniel said firmly. You wait. Daniel's father had joined us now, his presence commanding immediate attention. Let me make something very clear, he said slowly, that Mercedes was a gift to my daughter-in-law, not to her family, not to be redistributed as you see fit, to her. With all due respect, Mr. Hartley, Mom began. With all due respect, Catherine interrupted, her voice ice cold, you don't get to decide how my son and his wife manage their assets. You certainly don't get to volunteer their property for redistribution. The tent was absolutely silent now. Even the band had stopped playing. Bethy's eyes welled up. I can't believe you're all being so mean about this. I just needed help. You need help? Daniel's sister Emily spoke up. From what I heard at dinner last night, you work 15 hours a week and spend your paychecks on designer purses. That's not needing help. That's poor planning. How dare you? Mom's voice rose. You people think your money makes you better than everyone. This isn't about money, I finally spoke, my voice shaking. This is about respect. You didn't ask me about the car. You demanded it. You called my in-laws behind my back trying to manipulate them. You told Bethany she could pick it up tomorrow, like it was already decided on my wedding day. You did this on my wedding day. Melissa, honey, I was trying to help your sister. No, Mom. You were doing what you've always done, prioritizing Bethany and expecting me to fall in line, because I'm the responsible one who doesn't need attention. Years of swallowed resentment were pouring out. When I graduated high school with honors, you missed the ceremony because Bethany had a bad date. When I got into law school, you told me not to make a big deal about it because Bethany was feeling insecure about her own choices. And now, on my wedding day, you're trying to take away a gift from my husband's family because Bethany needs another bailout. Tears were streaming down my face, ruining my makeup, but I didn't care anymore. I spent my whole childhood being second place, making myself smaller so Bethany could feel bigger. But I'm done, Mom. I'm done apologizing for succeeding. I'm done feeling guilty for having nice things. And I'm definitely done letting you distribute my property like you have any right to it. Bethany was crying now, too, mascara running down her cheeks. I didn't know you felt that way. Of course you didn't, I said, because you've never had to think about anyone else's feelings. Mom made sure of that. Mom looked around at the watching crowd, her face a mask of humiliation and rage. I cannot believe you're doing this in front of all these people, your own mother. My mother, who tried to steal my wedding gift, I cut her off. Yeah, I think these people should know exactly who you are. Daniel's hand tightened on my waist. The car stays in Melissa's name. The discussion is over. If you'd like to continue enjoying the reception, you're welcome to. But if you're going to keep pushing this issue, I'll have security escort you out. Mom's mouth opened and closed like a fish. She clearly expected Daniel to be more accommodating, to try to smooth things over, to keep the peace. She'd miscalculated badly. You would throw your own mother-in-law out of the wedding reception? She asked in disbelief. I would throw anyone out who's trying to ruin my wife's wedding day, Daniel said, his voice final. Blood relation doesn't give you a free pass to treat her like garbage. Mom grabbed Beth's arm. Come on. We don't have to stay here and be insulted. They turned to leave, but Daniel's voice stopped them. Oh, and Mrs. Mitchell, one more thing. Mom turned back, hope flickering in her eyes that maybe he was backing down. If you ever try to manipulate my family or guilt my wife into giving you anything again, I will make sure every single person in your social circle knows exactly what you attempted today. My family has connections at every major business and social organization in this city. Good luck maintaining your membership at the country club when they find out how you treat your daughter. It was a calculated threat delivered with surgical precision. Mom's face went white as she understood the implications. The social connections she'd worked so hard to build, the network she carefully cultivated to maintain her image of comfortable middle-class respectability, could disappear with a few phone calls from the Hartleys. She left without another word, pulling Bethany behind her. The tent remained silent for another moment. Then Daniel's grandmother began to clap slowly. Others joined in, the applause building until the entire reception was cheering. Several people came up to hug me, sharing their own stories of boundary-stomping family members. I excused myself to the bathroom, needing a moment alone. Jessica followed me. You okay? She asked as I gripped the sink, trying to control my shaking hands. I just publicly humiliated my mother at my own wedding. No, you just publicly defended yourself at your own wedding. There's a difference. Jessica handed me tissues. I've known you since freshman year of college. I've watched your mom treat you like you're less important than Bethany for a decade. You needed to do this. Why does it feel so terrible then? Because you're a good person who was raised to believe that standing up for yourself is selfish. Jessica fixed my makeup with gentle hands. But you're not selfish, Melissa. You're finally putting yourself first, and that scares you because it's new. We returned to find Daniel talking to his parents and some other guests. When he saw me, he excused himself and came over immediately. My grandmother wants to make a toast, he said quietly. Are you up for it? I nodded, though I felt exhausted. We walked to the head table where his grandmother, Margaret Hartley, stood with a champagne glass. She was 92 years old, sharp as a tack, and had a reputation for speaking her mind. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, her voice surprisingly strong for her age. I've been to a lot of weddings in my life. Society weddings, quiet ceremonies, shotgun weddings, and everything in between. But this is the first wedding where I've watched a young woman stand up for herself so beautifully. The crowd murmured in approval. When I married my husband 70 years ago, women were expected to be quiet and accommodating. We were taught that family came first, even when family treated us poorly. I spent 30 years of my marriage catering to my mother-in-law's every whim before I finally learned to say no. She looked directly at me. Melissa, you learned that lesson much younger than I did. You stood here today and drew boundaries that you should have been allowed to draw years ago. I'm proud to call you my granddaughter. The applause was thunderous. I was crying again, but this time from gratitude rather than anger or hurt. Margaret came over and hugged me, smelling of expensive perfume and peppermint. Your mother will either learn from this or she won't, she whispered in my ear. Either way, you'll be fine. You've got steel in your spine. Girl, use it. The rest of the reception continued with renewed energy. People kept coming up to me, and I heard variations of the same story over and over. Difficult mothers, entitled siblings, family members who believed their success was others' inheritance. One woman told me about her sister who tried to move into her house after she got married because there was extra room. Another shared how her brother expected her to pay his mortgage because she made more money than him. Daniel's college friend Marcus pulled him aside, and I overheard him saying, "Man, I've never seen you go to war like that. It was like watching a different person." Daniel's response was immediate. "That's my wife. Nobody treats her like that, not even her own family." Around 10 o'clock, as the reception was winding down, my Uncle Steve approached me. He was my father's brother and had always been kind but distant. "Melissa, I need to apologize to you," he said, his eyes red-rimmed. "Your dad would have been so proud of what you did today, and ashamed of me for not doing it sooner." "Uncle Steve, no, let me say this. After your dad died, I should have stepped up more. I should have noticed how Claire was treating you and Bethany differently. I should have said something. Instead, I kept my mouth shut because I didn't want to cause problems." He wiped his eyes. "Your dad loved you so much, Melissa. He used to worry about what would happen to you after he was gone because he knew your mom favored Bethany. I promised him I'd look out for you, and I failed." The mention of my father broke something open in my chest. He'd been gone for 5 years, but I still missed him every day. He'd been the one who encouraged my dreams, who told me I was smart enough for law school, who believed in me unconditionally. "Dad knew," I whispered. "Of course he knew. He and your mom fought about it constantly. He wanted her to treat you both equally, but she always had some excuse for why Bethany needed more attention." Steve's voice was bitter. "After he died, it got worse. I should have intervened. I'm sorry." "You're here now," I said, hugging him. "That matters." "Daniel's a good man. Your dad would have liked him, especially after tonight." Steve managed a small smile. "Hell of a wedding gift, having a husband who will go to war for you." As midnight approached, Daniel and I prepared to leave for our hotel before our early flight to Bora Bora. I threw my bouquet, which Emily caught. She immediately handed it to her teenage daughter, much to everyone's amusement. Daniel tossed the garter, which his best friend caught, and immediately tried to give away to anyone else. We walked through a tunnel of sparklers to our waiting car, a vintage Rolls-Royce that would take us to the hotel. As we drove away, I looked back at the lit tent, the people still celebrating, and felt something shift in my chest. This was my new beginning, not just the marriage, but the boundary I'd drawn, the line I'd finally defended. "No regrets?" Daniel asked, lacing his fingers through mine. "None," I said, and meant it. Only that I didn't shut them down sooner. "I should have said something the first time your mom pulled that guilt trip nonsense. You did today. That's what matters." We spent our wedding night at a 5-star hotel downtown. Daniel carried me over the threshold of the suite, both of us laughing, the weight of the evening finally lifting. We ordered room service at 2 in the morning and ate chocolate cake in bed, talking about everything that had happened. "Your cousin Amanda was amazing," Daniel said. "I had no idea your mom had tried to make her postpone her wedding." "I didn't either. That's so on brand for Mom, though." I picked at the cake. "Do you think I went too far, Melissa?" "She tried to steal your car at your wedding. There is no too far in that scenario." He set his plate aside and pulled me close. "You've spent your whole life making yourself smaller so other people could feel bigger. Today you took up space. That's not going too far. That's finally going far enough." I keep waiting to feel guilty. Do you? I searched my feelings honestly. No, I'm sad. I'm angry. I'm relieved. But I'm not guilty. Good, because you have nothing to feel guilty about. He kissed my forehead. "Get some sleep. We have a plane to catch in 6 hours." But sleep was elusive. I lay awake thinking about my mother's face when Daniel threatened her country club membership, about Bethy's tears, about the applause from 200 people who'd watched me finally stand up to years of mistreatment. My phone buzzed around 4 in the morning. Against my better judgment, I checked it. A text from a number I didn't recognize. "This is your Aunt Rachel. I've wanted to say this for years. Your mother created this situation. She enabled Bethany and neglected you. I'm proud of you for setting boundaries. Your father would be too. Congratulations on your marriage. I showed Daniel, who'd woken when I moved. He read it and smiled. See, you're not the villain in this story. Mom would disagree. Mom's opinion stopped mattering the moment she tried to manipulate my parents, he said firmly. She made her choice. She chose Bethany over you. One time too many. The consequences of that choice are hers to live with. The flight to Bora Bora was long but comfortable and first class. Daniel had booked us a private overwater bungalow at a resort that looked like something out of a magazine. For 2 weeks we snorkeled, read books on the deck, made love with the sound of waves beneath us, and didn't talk about my family at all. On the 4th day, I made the mistake of checking Instagram. Bethany had posted a series of stories. The first was a vague post about fake people who forgot where they came from. The second was a photo of a used Honda Civic with a caption, "When you have to adult on your own because family abandons you." The third was a screenshot of an article about family estrangement with several crying emojis. Daniel took the phone out of my hand and tossed it gently onto the couch. No, we're on our honeymoon. Her drama doesn't get to come with us. She's making me look like the bad guy. To who? Her 300 Instagram followers who probably all know exactly what happened? Melissa, everyone at that wedding has already posted about it. Jessica's video got shared 50 times. The truth is out there. Let Bethany spin whatever narrative she wants. The people who matter know what really happened. He was right, but it still stung. I'd spent so long trying to be the good daughter, the supportive sister, the family member who never caused trouble. Letting go of that identity was harder than I'd expected. Daniel pulled me onto the dance floor as the band started playing again. "I'm sorry you had to do that," he whispered into my hair. "I'm not," I said, surprising myself. "I should have done it years ago." "For the record," he continued, "my parents already ordered you a second Mercedes, a different color, upgraded features. It'll be delivered next week. The original one is being donated to a women's shelter that helps abuse survivors get back on their feet." I pulled back to look at him. "You donated my car?" "It was never really yours after she touched it. I wanted you to have something that was completely untainted by her manipulation." He smiled. "Plus, the new one has heated and cooled seats, and I already handled all the title transfer paperwork for the donation. The women's shelter will auction it off to fund their programs." I started laughing, still crying, probably looking like a complete mess. "I love you so much." "I love you too. And for what it's worth, my mother is already drafting a very detailed prenuptial addendum that specifies any gifts from my family cannot be transferred to your relatives without both of our explicit written consent." "That's the most romantic thing you've ever said to me." "I thought you'd appreciate the legal specificity." We danced while our guests celebrated around us. Jessica came up during the next song, hugging me tightly. "That was the most badass thing I've ever seen," she said. "Your mom's face when Daniel threatened her club membership? Priceless." "I can't believe I did that in front of 200 people." "Everyone here is on your side. Did you see Mrs. Henderson? She was cheering louder than anyone. Apparently her daughter went through something similar with her in-laws." The rest of the reception passed in a blur of congratulations, knowing looks, and several older women sharing their own stories of family boundary issues. Daniel's parents made a point of toasting to our daughter Melissa, who deserves all the happiness in the world. Mom didn't call that night or for the next 2 weeks while we were on our honeymoon. The first week back from the honeymoon was surreal, moving into our new house, settling into married life, trying to process everything that had happened at the wedding. Catherine called me every other day just to check in, never pushing, but always available. It was the kind of maternal support I'd craved my whole life. There were 17 voicemails from Mom on my phone when I finally turned it back on. I deleted them without listening. Bethany sent a text. "I had to buy a used Honda. Hope you're happy." I blocked her number. Daniel's sister Emily invited me to lunch on Thursday. We met at a trendy bistro downtown, and she was already seated when I arrived. "How are you holding up?" she asked after we ordered. "Honestly, I don't know. Part of me feels free. Part of me feels like I just blew up my entire family." "You didn't blow anything up. You just stopped being the foundation that held everything together while being treated like dirt." Emily stirred her iced tea. "Can I tell you something?" "Of course." "When Daniel first told us about you, Mom ran a background check." I nearly choked on my water. "She what?" "Don't freak out. She does it with everyone we date. Seriously, old family habit." Emily smiled apologetically. But what came back was interesting. She found out about the scholarship fund you set up. She found out you'd been covering some of your mom's household bills for the last 2 years without telling anyone. She found out you'd loaned Bethany $8,000 that was never repaid. She found records of dozens of money transfers to your mom and sister going back years. How did she... Melissa, my family has resources. We don't use them lightly, but Mom wanted to understand who Daniel was marrying. Emily leaned forward. When she saw all of that, she told me she was worried. Worried that you were too generous, that your family was taking advantage of you, that you'd bring that dysfunction into our family. Daniel convinced her to give you a chance, that you were different. And then my mom tried to steal my wedding gift. Exactly. Mom's exact words when she called me after talking to your mom were, I was wrong. Melissa isn't too generous. She's been abused into generosity, and I'll be damned if I let them continue it. Emily reached across and squeezed my hand. You have a family now, Melissa, a real one. We're not perfect, but we don't take more than we give. The conversation stayed with me for days. The idea that I'd been abused into generosity hit differently than I'd expected. I'd always thought of myself as just being a good person, someone who helped when help was needed. But looking back, honestly, how much of that help had been freely given versus guilt extracted? The following Tuesday, I was at work when reception called up. Melissa, there's someone here to see you, a Claire Mitchell. She says she's your mother. My stomach dropped. Tell her I'm not available. She says she'll wait. I called Daniel immediately. My mom's at my office. Do you want me to come down there? No, but can you stay on the phone? I'm here. You've got this. I walked down to the lobby, my heels clicking on the marble floor. Mom sat in one of the leather chairs, her purse clutched in her lap. She looked smaller than I remembered, older. When she saw me, she stood quickly. Melissa, thank God. I've been trying to reach you for weeks. I know. I've been ignoring you deliberately. I kept my voice professional, aware we were in public. What do you want? I want to talk to my daughter. Can we go somewhere private? No. Whatever you have to say, you can say it here. Mom glanced around at the other people in the lobby, at the receptionist clearly listening. Melissa, please. This is embarrassing. You know what was embarrassing? Having you try to steal my wedding gift in front of 200 people. So excuse me if I'm not particularly concerned about your comfort right now. 3 months later, Mom showed up at our new house unannounced. Daniel answered the door. I need to speak with my daughter, she said. Melissa's not interested in speaking with you, he replied calmly. I'm her mother. You can't keep me from her. I'm not keeping you from anyone. She's making her own choice. If that changes, she'll reach out. Mom tried to push past him. Daniel didn't move, just stood in the doorway with his arms crossed. Mrs. Mitchell, you need to leave now. Bethany lost her job again, Mom said desperately. She can barely afford the payments on that used car. If Melissa would just... Just what? Daniel's voice sharpened. Bail her out again? Give her money? Buy her a new car? She's your sister. She's an adult, he cut in. Both of you are. Bethany's problems are not Melissa's responsibility to fix. Please, Mom begged, tears brimming. I know I made mistakes, but she's cutting off her entire family over one argument. It wasn't one argument, Daniel said evenly. It was 24 years of being treated like an ATM and an afterthought. You don't get to minimize that. I watched from the upstairs window as Mom finally left. Her shoulders were slumped, her steps slow. Part of me felt guilty. Part of me felt free. Daniel found me a few minutes later. You okay? Yeah, I said and meant it. I'm actually really okay. 6 months after the wedding, I got a letter from Bethany. Not a text or an email. An actual handwritten letter that arrived at our house. In it, she apologized. Really apologized. Without justifications or excuses. She said she'd started therapy and was beginning to understand how Mom's favoritism had damaged both of us. She wasn't asking for anything, just wanted me to know she was working on herself. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I put the letter in a drawer and focused on my life. My job at a nonprofit law clinic, my marriage, my new friendships with Daniel's family. Eventually, I sent a brief email saying I appreciated her apology and needed more time. She responded saying she understood. A year after the wedding, Mom sent a card. No letter, just a card that said missing you with her signature. I threw it away, then fished it out of the trash an hour later. I wasn't ready to forgive her, but I kept the card. Maybe someday. Daniel and I started talking about having kids soon. I'd already made him promise that if we have more than one child, we'll never play favorites. He laughed and said, "That's literally the easiest promise I'll ever make to you." The Mercedes GLE that his parents gave me was donated within a week of the wedding, and the title was transferred to the women's shelter who auctioned it for their programs. My new one, a gorgeous silver Mercedes GLE 450 with every upgrade imaginable, sits in our garage, titled in both our names, with a legal document on file specifying it cannot be transferred without both signatures. It's excessive and probably legally unnecessary, but it makes me feel safe. Sometimes I drive past the places where Mom used to take Bethany for their weekly lunch dates, a tradition I was never invited to. I don't feel angry anymore when I pass them. Mostly I feel sad for the relationship we could have had if she'd been capable of loving both her daughters equally. But I also feel grateful. Grateful for a husband who stood up for me. Grateful for in-laws who treat me like actual family. Grateful that I finally stood up for myself, even though it cost me my mother and sister. Jessica asked me once if I regretted making such a scene at my wedding. I told her the truth. The only thing I regret is that it took me so long to do it. My wedding day was supposed to be about starting a new life, and in a way, it was. Just not the way I planned. I learned that sometimes the best gift you can give yourself isn't a car or a dress or a perfect ceremony. Sometimes the best gift is boundaries, enforced loudly enough that everyone can hear them. Bethy's therapist apparently told her that Mom likely has narcissistic tendencies and that the golden child/scapegoat dynamic was textbook. I could have told her that without a therapist, but I'm glad she's getting help. Every year on our anniversary, Daniel and I go back to the Hartley estate where we got married. We stand in the garden where we said our vows and we remember everything, not just the beautiful parts, but the hard parts too. The parts where we established that our marriage would be different, that we would protect each other, that we would never let anyone, even family, treat us with less respect than we deserve. The Mercedes situation became a weird sort of legend in our social circle. People still bring it up at parties. Remember when Melissa's mom tried to steal her wedding gift at the actual wedding? They laugh about it now, but always with a sympathetic edge, sharing their own stories of difficult family members. Jessica still has the video from that night, and sometimes, when I'm feeling doubtful about my choices, I watch it to remind myself that I wasn't crazy or cruel. I was finally standing up for myself. Mom turned 58 last month. I didn't send a card. Bethany did text, asking if I wanted to contribute to a gift. I declined politely. She said okay and didn't push. That's progress, I suppose. Some people think I'm cruel for cutting off my mother over a car. They don't understand that it was never about the car. The car was just the final, most blatant example of a lifetime pattern. It was the moment that finally broke through my conditioning to be the good daughter who never complained. Daniel understands. His sister Emily understands. Even my uncle, who walked me down the aisle, called me a few months after the wedding to say he was proud of me for standing up for myself. He admitted he'd watched my mom favor Bethany for years and felt powerless to intervene. He told me, "Your dad would have done the same thing Daniel did." And for the first time in a long time, I believed it.